This is Activity 1-3 on page 15, Viewing Tables and Table Relationships. You have launched Microsoft Access and opened the Cabin Rentals 1 database. You have already opened the database, but you do not yet have a view into the data. In this activity, you will explore various tables in the database to get familiar with the content the database contains. Number 1, view the contents of a data table. At the top of the navigation pane, you're going to select the Tables heading to collapse the list of tables. So we can actually hit this and it will collapse it. You can collapse any group in the navigation pane to make it faster to view items in the groups below. This is especially convenient in a large, complicated database. So remember, we said we can have like hundreds of items in a database. So listed in the navigation bar, being able to collapse certain groups can be helpful in finding your specific object that you're looking for. All right, we're going to click on that tables heading again to expand it. Examine the tables listed in the tables group. We have table bookings, we have table bookings status list, table cabins features, table cabins maintenance, table cabins rooms, table contractors services, table customers, table features, table payments methods, and table services types. So you can see how helpful it is to, without opening them, to see what they would be just by naming it something, with a good description. So each table represents a different data concept stored in the database. For example, table cabins holds information about various cabins that may be rented out, and table customers holds information about people who rent the cabins. In the navigation pane, we're going to double-click on table cabins. A data sheet appears in which you can view and edit the contents of the table. This table holds information about the cabins that can be rented out. In the data sheet for table cabins, observe the following. A record of data for a specific cabin is contained within a single row. So record 1 would be Campbell Lodge and all the information that deals with that. Then another record would be cabin ID number 5, which is Sam's Point Retreat and all of the information that goes along with that. So a record is a single row. And then a field is contained within a single column. For example, the first column contains the cabin ID. Each column contains one type of information, such as text, numbers represented as currency, numbers represented as integers, and so forth. So a record is a row going across, and a field is a column, which is up and down. So you have the field cabin name for this column. Next, a value is the actual data stored for a particular field and record. For example, the cabin whose cabin ID is number 3, listed here, is named Bill's Bungalow. The value Bill's Bungalow is stored in its cabin name field. This table has an ID number for each cabin ID. So that's this field. The values in this field are unique and are not repeated from one row to another. When a field contains unique values, it could be used to identify specific records in the database. So these will all be unique numbers. They will not be repeated. Even if more cabin names were to be added to this table, to this data sheet, you would not repeat any numbers. Number 2, examine the other fields in the table cabins data sheet. At the top of the navigation pane, select the shutter bar open close button. So that is located right here. And when we click on this, you can see it collapses our navigation pane so we can have more room to view columns on our data sheet. Examine fields in the table cabin's data sheet. In addition to the cabin ID and name, so here we have cabin ID, we have cabin name, we also have cabin standard rate. So that's what this stands for here. A currency value showing the standard nightly rate to rent the cabin. So Campbell Lodge is $220 a night. Then we have cabin standard tax and fees, the standard amount added onto the rental cost to cover taxes and fees. Then we have cabin min nights. This is the minimum number of nights the cabin should be rented in a single booking. So Campbell Lodge, you need to stay at least 2 nights to make a reservation. And then we also have cabin address, city, state, province, zip postal code, we have country, and we can scroll over using our scroll bars. We have latitude, longitude, square footage, the web page, description. This paperclip is signifying an attachment. Here we have check boxes to show that that particular rental is active. All right, so lots of different fields here. So latitude and longitude, this is the cabin's mapping coordinates, which are helpful for cabins in remote locations that do not have a street address. Cabin square feet, size of the cabin web page, URL to access information about the cabin description, a textual description of the cabin and its features, and attachments. Again, the paperclip icon indicates that a field that enables cabin image files to be attached to the record for each cabin, and then active, a yes/no value that when checked indicates a cabin is available for new bookings. Okay, number 3, what are the benefits of having the cabin active field rather than just deleting cabins from the database when they are no longer available for new bookings? So you may need to keep data in the database for historical purposes. So you can see information about cabin rentals that are no longer active, for example. The option to mark a record as active or inactive, again, that's that, let me close this. That's that check mark field here. So the option to mark this as active or inactive lets you keep the old data while having a way to check whether new bookings should be allowed. It also makes it easier to add a cabin back to the pool later if the cabin becomes available again. So you don't want to necessarily delete it for any reason. Again, you may need it for historical purposes. When we get into QuickBooks, we'll learn you don't really ever want to delete items or any kind of invoices or statements or anything like that. You can make things inactive and you can always activate them again in the future if you need them. So maybe a cabin might be getting renovated, and it's going to take 6 months. You don't want to delete all the information for 6 months. You can just uncheck the active box and it will still be available for you to use when it's done being renovated. So that's an example of why you might want to do that. All right, number 4, examine how information in one table can be related to information in another table. We're going to scroll the data sheet back to the left so we can see the cabin ID field again. And at the top of the collapsed navigation pane, we're going to select the shutter bar open close button. So that's these 2 double arrows, and that's going to expand it open for us again. And in the navigation pane, we're going to double click on table bookings. So our first table here, we're going to double click to open that. A data sheet appears in which you can view and edit the contents of the table that records individual reservations for each cabin. Examine the various ID fields in the table bookings datasheet. These include booking ID. So this field provides a unique ID for each booking record. So just like the cabin ID, you'll never see a number used twice here. It'll never be repeated. Then we have our booking customer ID. This field identifies the ID of the customer who booked the cabin. Customers are stored in another table called Table Customers. Then we have Booking Cabin ID. This field stores the ID of the cabin being booked. The numbers in this field correspond to cabin numbers in the Table Cabins database. So these numbers in this field are these numbers in this field. Okay, that's where those are coming from. You can see numbers 1 through 6. So that's the cabin ID from our table cabins. So that is a relationship between these two tables. Let's see. Then we have letter E. Observe how ID fields are used to relate to information in different tables. For example, in Booking 2, which is listed here, Customer 3, here's our customer ID, has booked Cabin 2 from 8/22/2018 to 8/28/2018. And then we have in Booking 3, Customer 10 has booked Cabin 2 from 8/14/2018 to 8/20/2018. And then in Booking number 4, Customer number 4 has booked Cabin number 3 from August 7th, 2018 to August 18th, 2018. Number 5, what is the name of the cabin the customer rented in Booking number 4? So in Booking number 4, it tells us the cabin ID is number 3. It doesn't list the name here though, but we can go to Table Cabins and see that cabin ID 3 is Bill's Bungalow. Okay, so again, these are how these things are related. The cabin name is not stored in the table bookings table, so you can't determine it directly from just one table. But the cabin's ID of 3 is listed in both table bookings and table cabins. Because you know the cabin ID is 3, you can refer back to Table Cabins tab and look up the name of cabin 3. In the Table Cabins table, say that 3 times fast. You can see that Cable 3, again, is Bill's Bungalow. Now number 6, view how the tables in this database are related. We're going to go up to the Database Tools on our ribbon, and we're going to select Relationships. Oh boy, look how messy this can be. It's a lot of information squished into a tiny screen here. But it's much better to look at it in your book. You can see it's spread out there. I mean, I am looking at it on a laptop monitor, so it can be very small. I would imagine most of you are as well. So if you take a look at the image in number 6 on page 18, you can see the relationship lines that are formed between the different tables. So this view shows a summary of all tables in the database, the fields each table contains, and the relationships between the tables. You can think of this view as showing the database's schema, essentially a blueprint showing how it's constructed and how everything is connected to each other. Okay, so you can see, just for one example, well, we were looking at table cabins and table bookings. Cabin ID is going down to table bookings. And you can only have one cabin ID. This is the unique ID in table cabins, but that can show up many times in the bookings because different people are going to book the same cabin just on different dates. So it can show up many times. That's why it has that infinity symbol here. All right, letter B, observe the relationships between table cabins and various other tables in the database. In table cabins, the cabin ID field provides each cabin record with a unique ID. As you've already seen, the cabin ID field in table cabins provides each cabin record with a unique ID, and each record in the table bookings table uses booking cabin ID to identify the cabin specified in the booking. Other tables such as table cabins rooms, table cabins features, and table cabins maintenance provide additional information involving cabins using their own cabin ID values to establish the relationship with table cabins. All right, number 7, clean up the Access workspace. We're going to right-click on our Relationships tab, and we're going to close this out. You can use the right-click technique to close a specific tab. There are other ways to close the tab currently selected, such as selecting the Close button to the right of the tabs, or by pressing Control and the letter W. We're going to right-click on Table Bookings, and we're going to close all. This will close out all of our tabs and leave our document area empty for right now, but we still have our database open. Okay, we'll leave this open for our next activity.